Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever wondered if there's like a hidden blueprint behind the grand narratives of the Bible? You know, a divine master plan connecting seemingly disparate lives and events, almost like a secret code embedded in history.
That's precisely what we're diving into today. Our sources reveal this really profound framework called the Providence of Restoration, as articulated by Reverend Sun Young Moon. It offers, well, a unique lens.
The unique lens.
Yeah, uncovering how God's work of salvation unfolds through the lives of Jacob, Moses, and Jesus, revealing a consistent path, really, for humanity.
So our mission today is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from these insights. We'll explore how these biblical accounts aren't just history, but maybe a profound roadmap for us, revealing surprising connections you might never have considered.
Exactly. You'll gain a new way to view these iconic figures, understand the deeper meaning behind their, well, their extraordinary journeys.
Okay, so the central idea here is that God established Jacob and Moses as model courses for Jesus. Is that right? Like a divine rehearsal.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Playing out in 3 stages. First, symbolically with Jacob, then as a clear image with Moses, and finally with Jesus, the substantial fulfillment.
And the ultimate goal.
The ultimate goal, to bring Satan to voluntary submission, which is, I know, a pretty dense concept we'll need to explore.
Voluntary submission.
All right. This providence of restoration is essentially God's plan to help fallen humanity overcome our spiritual challenges. It's about allowing us to master our own, tendencies towards evil, which is personified as Satan in these scriptures.
I see.
And God provided these models because, well, let's be honest, Satan doesn't surrender easily, not to God and certainly not to us ordinary people. Jacob and Moses, they showed the path, demonstrating the necessary steps.
So Jacob was the pioneer, laying that foundational symbolic stage. He said it gets really interesting here.
It does. His entire life, including some really pivotal moments, became a symbolic representation of what Moses and Jesus would later do. It's like God was drawing a rough sketch, of the whole journey ahead.
A rough sketch? Like what specifically?
Well, consider a few powerful parallels. Jacob faced a truly life-threatening trial when he wrestled with an angel at the ford of Jabbok. A real struggle.
Right, the wrestling match.
Exactly. But this intense struggle wasn't meant to punish him. It was to help him qualify for what our sources call the position of Abel, a leader who guides others toward God's will, spiritually overcoming evil. This was his sort of family-level restoration.
Okay, the Abel position for the family.
Yes.
Yeah.
He also fulfilled what's termed an indemnity condition. Think of it as a way to spiritually pay back or reverse past errors. He did this by purposing the birthright from Esau with humble bread and lentils.
Bread and lentils. What's the symbolism there?
It symbolizes choosing spiritual priorities over purely physical ones, a way to overcome what's called a fallen nature. Even his journey moving from Haran, which our sources describe as a kind of satanic world, back to Canaan, seen as God's world, mirrored this return to a spiritual home.
Okay, so Jacob gives us the symbolic blueprint. Then Moses comes along. How does his journey, his image course, start to flesh out that blueprint, making it clearer for Jesus?
Moses definitely takes Jacob's symbolic actions and elevates them, makes them clearer. Like Jacob, Moses also faced a life-threatening trial. God actually confronted him before he could lead the Israelites out.
Clearly, God confronted him.
Yeah, which emphasizes that these tests, though they seem daunting, are understood here as given out of divine love, not malice, to strengthen him for the mission.
Oh?
And we see the theme of removing fallen nature again. God provided manna and quail to the Israelites in the desert. This fed both their physical and their spiritual needs, strengthening them to fulfill an indemnity condition. But this time on a national scale, building on Jacob's family model.
Well, national level, right.
And just like Jacob's journey was from darkness to light, Moses led the Israelites from Egypt, described again as a satanic world towards Canaan. There's also a powerful prophecy connecting them directly. Yes, Moses explicitly said, the Lord God will raise up for you a prophet from your brethren, as he raised me up. You shall listen to him in whatever he tells you. According to our sources, this clearly refers to Jesus.
Wow, okay. So the foreshadowing becomes much more explicit with Moses.
Definitely.
And finally, Jesus. He built on both Jacob's symbolic course and Moses' image course to substantially bring Satan to submission. This is the fulfillment, the full living reality of the blueprint.
Absolutely. Jesus' own life was a substantial mirroring of these patterns. His 40-day fast and temptations in the wilderness, that was his life-threatening trial, where he battled Satan directly. A substantial battle.
The three temptations.
Exactly. And for removing fallen nature, Jesus challenged humanity, saying, unless you eat the flesh of preoccupied man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. He was calling us to become one with him, both spiritually and, well, physically too.
Uniting with him.
Yes. He also gathered 12 disciples and 70 followers, echoing those numerical conditions we saw with Jacob's 12 sons and Moses' 70 elders. It all symbolizes the restoration of God's ideal family and nation.
The numbers keep reappearing.
They do. And just as Jacob and Moses relied on a staff for guidance, our sources indicate Jesus, at his second coming, will guide humanity with a rod of iron, symbolizing his ultimate leadership. He even confirmed he was following a preset model himself.
He said that.
Yeah, he stated, "The Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever he does, that the Son does likewise." Pretty clear affirmation he's following the pattern God revealed through Moses.
Okay, we've mapped out these three figures as part of this, well, divine blueprint. But you mentioned it wasn't a straight line. It was filled with repeated attempts, human choices. That brings us to a crucial question. Why did God's plan, especially under Moses and Jesus, take such a winding path?
This is really key. Our sources emphasize that God's will, the ultimate goal, is absolutely destined to be fulfilled. But the manner of its fulfillment, particularly through individuals or nations, is conditional. It depends on human responsibility.
Conditional. So it's not all predetermined.
Exactly. God doesn't predetermine human failure. Instead, he respects our free will. When people fail their part, their portion of responsibility, God works to restore that foundation, which often requires, well, repeated attempts, doing it again.
Okay, let's dive into Moses' leadership then, and the Israelites' journey to Canaan. You said it perfectly illustrates these patterns. Faith, failure, and then renewed opportunity, but on a massive scale.
It really does. Moses' mission expanded the scope from Jacob's family level to a whole nation, building on Abraham's foundation. The first attempt, what our sources call the first national course, involved Moses preparing for 40 years in Pharaoh's palace. He stayed loyal to Israel despite the comforts.
30 years in the palace.
Right. Then he killed an Egyptian taskmaster. Our sources say God used this act to cut Moses' ties to Pharaoh and show his patriotism, hoping to inspire the Israelites. If they had trusted Moses, then him being in the able position, their spiritual leader, they could have gone straight to Canaan, like in 21 days.
21 days, instead of 40 years.
Exactly. But they misunderstood him, they spoke ill of him, and he had to flee. That failure shattered the foundation, aborting that initial, quicker course.
Wow. So that led to the second attempt.
Yes, the second national course. Moses spent another 40 years, this time in the wilderness of Midian, to restore that lost foundation of faith. Then God intervened powerfully. The 3 signs, the 10 plagues, all to free the Israelites.
The plagues. They weren't just punishments.
Not just punishments, no. They symbolically foreshadowed Jesus' work. For example, the plagues helped separate Satan's realm, Egypt, from God's people. The final plague, the death of the firstborn, symbolized Satan's side perishing, while God's side was saved through faith, foreshadowing salvation through Christ.
Okay. And God provided the tabernacle too.
Right. When the Israelites showed repeated faithlessness, God gave them the tabernacle with the ark and the stone tablets as a constant object of faith. Something stable, even if people wavered. It symbolized Jesus' body as a portable temple, a focus point.
But even that wasn't enough. There were more failures.
Unfortunately, yes. Even with the tabernacle first attempt, Moses fasts 40 days for the tablets, but the Israelites build and worship the golden calf. Moses breaks the tablets in anger.
Which foreshadowed.
Our sources say it foreshadowed Jesus' crucifixion if people were faithless towards him. Then second attempt for the tabernacle. Moses carves new tablets, another 40-day fast. They build the tabernacle. But soon they're complaining again, longing for Egypt.
Unbelievable.
And the third attempt related to the tabernacle's purpose, the 40-day spy mission into Canaan. 10 spies came back with faithless reports, spreading fear. The Israelites murmured against God and Moses. That's when God condemned them to wander for 40 years a year for each day of the spying mission.
40 years? Because of 40 days of faithless reports. That's a heavy consequence.
It shows the weight of responsibility. So despite God's clear guidance, these powerful interventions, human faithlessness just kept derailing the plan.
So what happened in the third national course? And how did Moses himself? How did his actions fit into this?
Right, so after the 40 years wandering, they're finally near Canaan again. Moses faced his final test at a place called Kadesh Barnea. The people complained again, needing water. God told Moses, "Speak to the rock." But the account says he told him to strike the rock once.
Strike it once.
Yes, the rock symbolized perfected humanity, like Adam should have been, and also Jesus, the ultimate source of life-giving water. Striking it once symbolized restoring that life-giving potential. But Moses, just enraged by their decades of faithlessness, struck the rock twice.
Twice. What did that signify?
That was his critical mistake. Striking it twice, according to these teachings, tragically symbolized Jesus being struck his crucifixion, which would happen if people were faithless towards him. It was seen as a deeper error than breaking the tablets because the rock represented the internal aspect, the very origin of Christ, while the tablets were more external.
And the consequence for Moses?
He was denied entry into Canaan. He could only look at it from afar. Again, foreshadowing Jesus' crucifixion if he were rejected by his people.
That's quite a burden of human responsibility. But even with Moses' failure, the mission didn't just stop there, did it?
No, exactly. God's will persists. Joshua, who along with Caleb had shown absolute faith during that disastrous spy mission years earlier, was commissioned by God to lead the next generation, the internal Israelites born in the wilderness.
So Joshua took over.
Yes. And Joshua's success, leading them across the parted Jordan River with the ark, conquering Jericho, defeating kings powerfully prefigured Christ at the second advent, who is expected to complete Jesus' unfinished mission. Joshua essentially restored the national foundation for the Messiah.
But did it finally stick then?
Well, the foundation was laid, but even this younger generation eventually also became faithless over time, prolonging the providence yet again into later history. It's a recurring cycle.
Wow. So, okay, bringing this all together,
Yeah.
what does this incredibly complex story of Moses and the Israelites mean for us? What are the big takeaways?
I think it boils down to a few critical insights. First, God's will for restoration is absolute. It will be fulfilled eventually, but the person or the nation chosen to fulfill it at any given time, that's conditional on their responsibility.
Okay, condition.
Second, God respects human free will. He doesn't interfere directly in that portion of responsibility, but rather responds to the results of our actions, whether faithful or faithless. That's why when a chosen central figure fails, like Moses ultimately did in terms of entering Canaan, God finds a successor, like Joshua.
Right, the succession principle.
Exactly. And finally, remember that greater missions bring greater tests. God allows these tests, sometimes before granting grace, sometimes after, to strengthen us and, crucially, to establish conditions that overcome spiritual accusations from Satan's side.
Okay, that makes sense. This intricate tapestry of providence, human choice, divine persistence. It really does reshape how you understand these stories. Let's connect this directly to Jesus now. Our sources explain how he also followed a pattern of 3 worldwide courses to restore Canaan, mirroring Moses' national courses.
That's right. This takes us to the heart of Christian understanding, but maybe with some new perspectives. Jesus came as the second Adam, the one to finally succeed where the first Adam failed, to bring Satan to submission and establish the kingdom of heaven, building directly on Jacob's symbolic and Moses's image models.
So the first worldwide course, who was central to that?
The first worldwide course actually began with John the Baptist. He came in the spirit and power of Elijah, tasked with preparing the way, separating people spiritually from Satan's influence, getting them ready for the Messiah, just like Moses came after a long period of preparation.
John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Elijah. Okay.
He lived an exemplary life, laid a powerful foundation of faith. People even wondered if he was the Messiah. Miracles surrounded his birth, but then, tragically, he began to doubt Jesus.
He doubted.
Yes. He sent his disciples asking Jesus, "Are you he who is to come, or shall we look for another?" He even denied being Elijah when asked directly. According to this view, this faithlessness, this doubt, essentially blocked the Jewish people from fully accepting Jesus and aborted this first worldwide course. John left his crucial able position.
Wow. So because John faltered, Jesus himself had to take on that preparatory role.
Exactly. Jesus had to step into John's shoes, effectively, to restore that foundation of faith himself. And this brings us, as you said, to one of the most famous biblical accounts, Jesus' 40-day fast and his 3 temptations in the wilderness.
Right, the temptations. This is the start of the second worldwide course.
Yes. Jesus undertaking this was necessary for the second worldwide course. And these temptations weren't random attacks. Our sources point to specific causes.
Like what?
Well, a remote cause goes back to Moses striking the rock twice. Remember, that symbolized Jesus, the fulfillment of the rock, being potentially defiled or struck by Satan if people disbelieved. And the immediate cause was John the Baptist's faithlessness, which sort of fulfilled the negative conditions set by Moses' mistake generations earlier.
So John's doubt opened the door for Satan to tempt Jesus directly.
That's the understanding here. Satan's goal in these temptations was specific: to prevent Jesus from restoring the three great blessings lost at the fall, which are seen as perfection of individual character, the multiplication of true children, a God-centered family, and rightful dominion over the natural world.
And Jesus overcame all three.
He did, profoundly. First temptation, turn stones to bread. Satan challenged his physical needs. Jesus replied, "Man shall not live by bread alone." Prioritizing becoming the incarnate word, restoring individual perfection, the first blessing. Second temptation, jump from the temple pinnacle. Satan challenged his position as Lord of the temple. Jesus replied, "You shall not tempt the Lord your God," asserting his divine authority and opening the way for believers eventually to become branch temples themselves, restoring the foundation for true family, the second blessing. Third temptation, offering the kingdoms of the world. Satan challenged his dominion. Jesus replied, "Begone, Satan, worship the Lord your God," affirming God's and thus his own rightful dominion over creation, the third blessing.
So by overcoming these, what did he achieve?
By overcoming these temptations, Jesus, standing in the position John the Baptist should have secured, restored all at once the foundation of faith for this second worldwide course. And not just that, but he also restored all the previous dispensations of 40 for the separation of Satan throughout history. A huge victory.
A massive victory.
Yeah.
But the course still failed.
Tragically, yes. Despite Jesus' personal victory over Satan in the wilderness, the Jewish leadership, the priests, the scribes, and even one of his own disciples, Judas Iscariot, disbelieved. They didn't unite with him. Satan confronted Jesus through them. Because of this lack of faith from the people who were meant to receive him, the necessary foundation of substance and the foundation for the Messiah could not be fully laid on earth. This led to the tragic failure of that course and ultimately to Jesus' crucifixion.
So the crucifixion wasn't God's original plan A.
According to this teaching, no. It was a consequence of human failure to fulfill their responsibility, similar to the failures in Moses' time. God then worked through the crucifixion to open up a path for spiritual salvation.
Which brings us to the third worldwide course. You mentioned this started as a spiritual course because the physical focus of faith, Jesus' body, was lost.
Precisely. When Jesus said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up," he was referring to his body, but it takes on this deeper meaning. The third course began spiritually. Jesus' 40-day resurrection period after the crucifixion was his spiritual triumph over Satan. He broke death's chains, laying the spiritual foundation of faith.
God's maximum power.
Yes, bringing life, seen here as compensation for Satan's maximum power displayed in killing Jesus. The resurrected Jesus was spiritual. He could appear through closed doors, wasn't always immediately recognized. His disciples eventually reunited and believed his resurrection message, forming the spiritual foundation of substance.
And this led to Pentecost.
Right. Jesus and the Holy Spirit then became what our sources call spiritual true parents, offering spiritual rebirth and salvation, which poured out powerfully at Pentecost.
But there's a limitation still.
Yes, a crucial one. While Christians are spiritually saved through faith in the resurrected Christ, becoming spiritual adopted children of God, their physical bodies, according to this view, are still subject to the influences tracing back to the fall. The original sin, understood as rooted in the lineage, remains in the flesh.
So spiritually saved, but physically still connected to
what's described as Satan's lineage, physically speaking, not yet fully restored to God's direct lineage in both spirit and body. This is why St. Paul could lament, "We ourselves groan inwardly as we wait for adoption as sons," expressing that longing for complete physical restoration.
Which leads to the need for a substantial course, a future fulfillment.
Exactly. While Jesus restored Canaan spiritually, establishing spiritual salvation, the belief here is that Christ at the second advent will return in the flesh to complete the substantial physical restoration, to build the actual kingdom of heaven on earth.
Why the third attempt?
Because God's providence to raise up true parents of humankind, figures who can fully embody God's love and initiate a new lineage free from original sin, is believed to be successful on this third attempt, building on the spiritual foundation Jesus laid.
And what challenges might this figure face?
Similar challenges. If Christians reject him, he will likely suffer tribulations, much like Jesus did. But crucially, our sources state he will not die without fulfilling the providence this time. It's suggested that a modern democratic society will offer a degree of protection against outright condemnation that wasn't available before.
Interesting. And how will this course begin?
This final course is expected to begin with the dispensation to start based on the Word, meaning a focus on deep internal truths and understanding, perhaps more so than overt miracles and signs initially.
And the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal is profound: to transform fallen people into children born of God's direct lineage, finally cleansing the original sin from the root and restoring humanity to be God's true children, physically and spiritually, building the kingdom of heaven starting from a family foundation, then expanding outwards: clan, society, nation, world, cosmos.
And if established Christianity rejects him?
The sources suggest God will raise up a third Israel, a new group of people who will accept and follow the path to complete restoration.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. Looking
Yeah.
back at Jesus' course, mirroring Moses's, what are the key lessons we should draw from this part of the story?
Well, again, we see God's absolute will for salvation is predestined, but the individual or nation chosen to fulfill it is conditional. When John the Baptist failed, Jesus chose Peter as a central disciple. When Judas failed, Matthias was chosen. When the Jewish people largely rejected Jesus, the mission passed to the Gentiles. God works with human response.
Right, the conditionality again.
And again, no direct divine interference in human responsibility. God responds to the results of actions like John's doubt or Judas's betrayal. And finally, the principle holds: greater mission, greater test. Jesus, as the second Adam, faced the ultimate test, enduring Satan's direct temptations, and even feeling forsaken by God on the cross, all necessary, in this view, to restore Adam's original mistake of faithlessness and pay the ultimate price for humanity's spiritual liberation.
What an incredible deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
really, into this blueprint of salvation. From Jacob's symbolic struggles through Moses' national trials, and then to Jesus' worldwide spiritual restoration and the path forward.
We've traced this consistent, persistent divine plan unfolding, often through, well, human choices and immense challenges.
Yeah, it's a story of ultimate purpose, incredible resilience on God's part, and just profound symbolism woven through history.
It really offers a fresh perspective on these ancient narratives. Absolutely. And this whole journey through the providence of restoration, it profoundly reveals that human responsibility isn't just some footnote. It's absolutely central to how God's plan unfolds. Those delays, the repeated attempts we talked about, they weren't predetermined by God. They were caused by human faithlessness, by people not fulfilling their part.
Right.
And that really raises an important question, I think, for you, the listener. If so much hinged on the faith and the choices of individuals in these ancient narratives, what does that mean for your personal responsibility right now and for our collective human journey? How are we shaping the future and potentially fulfilling a divine purpose today?
That is a powerful thought to carry with you. How do these insights resonate with your own understanding, your own faith, your own life? We definitely encourage you to reflect on these patterns: faith, trial, responsibility, and that ultimate pursuit of restoration as you navigate your own path.